Episode 8 of Season 2, Bedo's Media. Welcome back to another episode of the Bedo's Media. What are we all getting up to nowadays, eh?
What about me?
What about you? That's the question. What about you?
What a question. What a question. I didn't think it would be one that we'd be discussing too soon on a Bedo's podcast, but I can't believe we missed it.
Well, you suggested it as well, and I thought that's not like you, because you're one of those guys who's a bit of a macho kind of guy who's
Thank you.
Yeah, well, self-perceived macho kind of guy.
Oh, you had to. You couldn't just leave it.
Yeah. Well, what is macho? What was? We can really go deep into the definition of what is meant by being macho, and I'm sure our opinions will differ, and we'll disagree. But the question today is about self-worth, self-love, self-care, about you as an individual, we as individuals, right? A lot of us seem to be in this kind of mindset that, well, not even a lot of us, I've come across so many different situations where I've thought to myself, you know what, you need to show yourself some love.
Do we need to know about those situations?
Yeah, all the time.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, in every possible way. Okay,
so
even going to...
give me an example of where you might have thought, wait, what about me? And I'm not talking dinner time, I'm talking like generally, in life. Because it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know what? I think it happens to lots of people in different circumstances and scenarios. For a lot of people, the what about me question arises when they're faced in a situation where they have been forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah? Or they feel they haven't been treated at least equally to others. Or fairly. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think that's what it is? Do you think it's about being treated equally, or is it more about...
Fairly. I would say fairly rather than equally.
Yeah, about being considered, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you don't want what everybody else wants.
No, exactly. But at least if consideration is being given to what you want as an individual, then that's something different, isn't it? I think that's where the crux of it all comes, doesn't it? What is it that you want? I think what's even a deeper question is not somebody asking you, what is it that you want? Is you asking yourself, what do I want? That's the foundational question, in my opinion.
Cheeseburger.
Yeah. It could be just that.
It usually is.
And that's enough then, isn't it?
See, I think it is a deep subject, but I think the main problem lies in ourselves. We don't ask ourselves what we want. We don't really stop to consider often enough what we want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people will agree is that they get so carried away in their day-to-day in doing what they're supposed to do, playing their role, in whatever structure. Is it a team? Is it a family dynamic? Is it whatever else? And you're so fixated on what you're supposed to be doing, or what's expected from you,
or what you're supposed to be,
So by the time you get around to wait, who's going to stop and ask me what I need or what I want? And it's more complicated. Initially I used to think it was just the man of the house who wouldn't get considered for that. It's not common, especially in our culture. I think perhaps most cultures, it's not common for the family to stop and ask the man, wait, hang on a second, what do you need? What do you want?
I don't think it's just the man. I think it's women as well. Think about our mothers, our sisters, or wives. There are lots of people who do a lot around the house.
Yeah.
How many times do people actually fairly give them that time and ask them, what do you want?
See,
what do you...
my main focus whenever it came to this subject was generally around the man of the house. You're not allowed to stop and think about yourself. You can't really focus on yourself or put yourself first. But the more deeper that you look into it, the women are no more privileged in any sense. They're playing their role. They're fulfilling their, obligations and responsibilities. And nobody's really asking them either, what is it that you want?
Well, Simra just commented that there is a lot of society input and social media input in how we're supposed to be like. Uh, I think that's, yeah, I think to a degree that happens, doesn't it? We get influenced by the social circle that we're in. Jim Rohns once said, you are the average of 5 people you hang about
Your
with.
closest 5, yeah.
So we get influenced by the people around us into thinking this is how we're supposed to be. Might not truly be what we feel internally as what we should be.
Yes.
And it's a completely different situation altogether, isn't it? There's a completely different thought process around that. You know, it's interesting because this is quite a complex dynamics. I think everybody, if we're looking at it in a personal situation in a household, I think everyone in a household would feel that nobody asks me enough.
I'd agree. I think everybody is so busy doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. You know, I'm busy doing what I think my wife wants from me. What I think my daughter wants, my son wants, you know, my parents expect. And I'm not asking them specifically, you know, what they need and want.
Why don't you ask?
Because it's always been a certain way, hasn't it? I think in most households it's the same thing. And have you ever, I mean, I don't eavesdrop arguments and stuff, but you see in drama series and TV programs and stuff all the time. I do this for you, I do that for you. I'm
that's
busting my
dramatized,
back. No, is it though? Is that not a real life argument? I bust my back for you, and I'm doing this, and the women are saying, I slave away in the kitchen, and I do this, and I cook, and I clean, and
valid point though. If they do,
they're both valid points. The man is not wrong. The breadwinner is not wrong. He is grafting away, and the woman's not wrong. She doesn't even get a day off.
Anzar says, I think in our culture we are encouraged to fulfill a role and play a part rather than think about ourselves and ask what we want for each other and ourselves. I think you're right. To a large degree, this is what happens. You know, people tend to be in some kind of a autopilot. Kind of, it's a learned behavior. You know, you learn from other people around you of how you're supposed to be, what the man of the house, in inverted commas, whatever that means, because that's going to have so many different meanings to different people. From culture to culture, from, you know, continent to continent. These things are going to have, you know, some finer nuances and differences in what that man of the house is supposed to be. Is there such a thing, some might question, as man of the house? You know, these are things that are always going to be debated.
But that's the time that we're in now, isn't it? We question and we debate everything, even things that don't need.
But culturally, I think Anzar, you know, is right in that sense that people are expected to fulfill certain roles without it being questioned. And when they are being fulfilled, or there's an attempt for those roles to be fulfilled, somehow, for some reason, things go on autopilot. I think one of the failures is the rest of the people within the household being educated or learning about the whole concept of appreciation. So if I, for example, taught my kids to appreciate my wife, their mother, by doing certain things, that will be learnt behavior. So they would like, if any of my children spoke in a way which I felt, you know, was not up to par with my standards, which may be low or which may be high in comparison to other people. It was all subjective. Then I'm giving them permission to be behaving in a certain way in front of their mother.
Oh, you mean if your children spoke to your wife in a certain way?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure, even though, you know, a mother may not say something, or she may decide to say something, you know, these things are supported within the family nucleus, within the family setup. I think when we ask people, what do you want? It's sometimes assumed that you should know what I want. Have you ever come across that situation? Maybe in certain, again, in the dramas that you watch, where people or one partner might say, why are you asking me? You should know what I want. You should know that would upset me, or you should know that.
That's just a whole plate of spaghetti, that isn't it? It's just Jalebi Junction there,
Oh, Jalebi Junction, that reminds me.
The thing is, I think men generally are simpler creatures, if I'm allowed to say that.
Men, you think, are simpler creatures?
I think we're far simpler.
Are we going back to that space on the wall and and
with
the empty box, the nothing box? Yeah.
What a wonderful
If you
place.
haven't seen, what's the guy's name who talked about it?
I can't recall.
There's a comedian who talks about how men and women's brains work, and it is funny. And he talks about how just go and Google it, the nothing box. If you haven't already watched it, it's actually quite.
But the thing is, generally speaking, from a man's perspective, maybe there's not as many wires or as much going on, but most men will tell you what they want or how they want it. Yeah.
What, men and women?
Yeah,
what are you referring to exactly?
When you say that, your partners may say to you, "You should know what I want."
No, my partner doesn't. But I'm just saying, sometimes you have partners who.
I don't know.
I've seen it. Like, again on.
Have you ever seen it come from a man to say, "Well, you should understand"?
Yeah,
me?
I have, and especially in cases of domestic violence and domestic abuse, or people who are generally narcissistic in their ways. They like to control the people who they're with. They will say, "That's not right. You shouldn't be wearing that. Or you shouldn't be looking like this. You shouldn't be talking like this."
But that's it. A controlling person is micromanages even his family and his spouse and whoever else.
Yeah.
So he's very telling of what he wants. Yeah. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm saying you'll probably find that trait somewhat more in women, of saying, "Well, you should understand me better. You should know this. I shouldn't have to tell you," and so forth.
Zishan says men can be complicated because we can find it hard to open up to someone.
Completely valid point. Different subject, but very valid point. We don't open up as much as perhaps we should. And I think for most men, it's not that they don't want to open up. It's just more so the setting,
What do you mean, the setting?
To show yourself as vulnerable to people who look up to you as the strongest person in the world is difficult. To go home and open up to perhaps your wife or your kids and stuff. For men, I can understand why it may be difficult. And guys are guys, innit? We don't really have the best of mates. If you try and tell your mate that you're depressed, he'll probably smack you around the head and say, snap out of it and stuff. Men do have difficulties opening up. It's a very unfortunate reality. It's something that I think we've always struggled with. I don't think it's for not wanting to. I think it's just purely setting. We have to be the breadwinner, the provider, the rock, the strong one. So when do we let our hair down?
Where do you feel people have gone wrong when they feel they've come to a stage where they've had to say or think, "What about me?" Where have they gone wrong? Yeah.
I think it accumulates over time.
Agree.
A long period of time.
I agree, 100%. Yeah.
It's with anything. If you pent it up for long enough,
and if you allow it to happen for long enough,
yes.
Because I think that you inadvertently you're giving permission to people to be or behave in a certain way or say certain things or do certain things until you feel, enough's enough. But even then, if they feel that they have come to a stage where they have to say, "What about me?" to that degree, obviously there's going to be levels to this. You could say that "what about me" right at the beginning of that relationship between husband and wife, or whatever, or even in a professional relationship if you feel you're being treated unfairly. But if you've come to a stage where after a long time now you're having to say "what about me," it's not going to be heard as loudly or clearly as you would hope. Because you have given permission to be treated in a certain way for such a long time. And if it has gone on,
that's not always the case, though, is it? It's just look, I think most people who enter like a marital relationship or something are patient, or at least they
claim
understand that they should be. So in part of that patience, you think, well, okay, it doesn't matter about me. What do you guys want to eat? Where do you guys
Why
want to
does it always come to food for you?
Food is
Come on,
life,
Yarad.
man.
Think about something
You know,
else, will you?
there's people who eat to live,
You
and then there's
live to
people
eat.
who live to
You
eat.
live to eat. I know people like that, but and I've
But, okay.
seen. You know what? Look, in extreme cases, I've seen that ruin marriages.
Food?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Anyway, different subject. Go on.
I think we should do a show on that. That's fascinating.
How would you title that?
I'm sure we could. But no, I mean, look, we're going to go with an example here, and I'm
Go
only
on.
going to pick the male head of the household because I'm male. I can kind of relate to that. I'm sure women go through very, very similar situations and scenarios. But if you're the man of the house and if you're, I don't know, if you're loving or caring or, you're not generally going to dictate what's for dinner. You're going to ask the kids, yeah, what would you guys like to eat today? When it comes to watching a movie, you're generally going to ask, what do you guys want to watch? When it comes to holidays or days out or going to the park, okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to play? And same with your wife.
What do you want to play?
Wow.
Listen, we've got an interesting question. Frazana is asking, can I ask either of you, if you were going through depression, would you openly admit it? Would you be man enough to open up?
I don't think it's got anything to do with being man enough. I think you've got to be...
It's a two-part question. What's the
Yeah.
answer to the first part of the question? Would you openly admit it?
Would you openly admit it?
Yeah.
No. I don't think it's one of those things that needs to be broadcast. Would you confide in someone or seek help or wisdom, advice? Yes. And I think that's the difference. I think that's the right way to
I think that's what she really means. Would you?
I hope so, because the thing is, we're in an age of social media, and there's so much cryptic shit that goes on to Facebook statuses and stuff. And no offense, but it's predominantly the females that do it. Straight away followed by, "You okay, hun? Inbox me." It's just that's not the right way to do it. I'm not saying, I'm not saying bottle it up or pent it up, but a bit of hikmah, approach it in the correct manner.
So you think you're going to drop in a word like hikmah in there, and you're going to think you get the sisters to calm down at what you're saying?
No,
you're going to take it more seriously.
It is what it is. If we're going to be controversial, we're controversial. Yeah, I'm not trying to be controversial.
That's just you.
I just
through
am.
and through.
Yeah.
You don't need to try.
But no, it's very important. So would you openly admit it? No. Short answer is no.
Okay.
Would you be man enough to open up? I don't think it's got anything to do with
Or
being
man enough to
enough.
do something about it.
I think it's wrong to put someone in a corner like that. You should be human enough to admit you're
to
human.
acknowledge, yes.
Yeah,
you are
acknowledge
human,
this is
yes.
it. It's got nothing to do with being man enough or manning up and you see this go down a lot in conversations, in arguments, in heated moments. It's not the right way to approach it. And I think that's what puts us men on the back foot. If someone says to you, "You're not man enough," your wife says to you, "You're not man enough to do this," or when are you going to man up? When are you going to grow up here?
That is, you know what? I think men and women in general, without getting into that conversation, they need to understand each other, irrespective of their gender. I think they need to understand each other in terms of their personalities before making any kind of sweeping comments like that. Anyway, again, those kinds of comments I've seen breaking marriages or ruining marriages.
Oh, definitely.
But coming back to the original question, what about me? I think it goes without saying that if we've come to a stage in the long term where we feel hard done by, or we feel that, you see, we can, I've seen several different kinds of situations where people have been genuinely hard done by. If they've, in a relationship with somebody who is very controlling and they've allowed that control to persistently continue and rule the way they live, whether it's in fear, whether it's in the fear of doing something wrong, or, trying to please them, whether that comes, through lack of their own confidence, or, this kind of cultural thing that's been embedded in them that you just shouldn't ever answer back, or those kind of things, that happens as well.
Answer back
To their husband.
Okay.
for example, in terms of a wife, whatever the case might be, it's led them to be in relationships where they've got kids, they've got a husband, they've got, all the responsibilities, maybe even of in-laws as well, but they can't do anything now.
On,
stuck.
on the whole topic of answering back, I think it is a bit of a different subject altogether, but perhaps it shouldn't be done in either sense. It's not just the women who shouldn't answer back. The men shouldn't be answering back.
I think, there are etiquettes to disagreeing, and there are etiquettes to having conversations.
And it's like
irrespective of men and women. But the point is, you understand that in certain cultures, there's this thing of even going to the extreme idea of calling their husbands Bajaji Khuda, which is so kind of extreme way of putting a husband on a pedestal, on such an elevated platform that it's almost shirk call him in Bajaji Khuda, right?
Is it though? Is that an actual?
Yeah, there's actually a term. There's actually a term.
No, I've heard of, and I don't know how true it is because it's not really something you look into. But they say that if sujood to anybody other than Allah was permissible, it would be to the husband, right?
But it's not.
It's not. But
this is the point.
Is there some narration along those lines?
Yeah, I've come across that narration as well.
So the thing is,
there's the respect element there. Yes.
What you've got to understand is, look, in I think it was the last week's show, you said that history will be written by the victor.
Yeah.
To something paraphrasing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that applies in various aspects of life. It's the men that are on the microphones or on the platforms or on the TV, whatever.
That's changing in recent times, but you're right. Traditionally, that's been the case.
What happened in the past is that it was too easy to get up on the pulpit or whatever it's called. Mimbar. What did I say?
Pulpit. More of a Christian term, but fair enough.
Khair.
It can work.
We're inclusive. And I think a lot of men took advantage of that.
I agree they did.
It was a major issue. I think now we have access to far better, materials, education, everything else. Unfortunately, we've sometimes gone too extreme and too far on the other side of the fence, but we're probably closer to a more balanced outlook on a husband-wife relationship or a man-woman, equality than I can remember ever. You didn't answer the question.
What?
Would you openly admit it?
If the question about openly admit it means that I have to publicize it, then no.
Okay, so we're in agreement, right?
Yeah. If it means openly admit it to the right people for the right reasons, yes.
I mean, if
it means seeking counseling from somebody who's got the skills to be able to listen to what it's
like going to your GP, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't tell the whole world that you've got...
I'm a coach myself. People open up to me. I understand the dynamics behind that kind of a relationship and value that brings. Yes, if I was going through that kind of situation, I would feel confident enough to approach somebody and open up about my inner feelings and thoughts, which are leading me towards negative thoughts and negative behaviors or limiting behaviors and thoughts or whatever they might be.
Yeah, anything that's
and that's affecting me in a negative way. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Would you be man enough to open up? Well, how do you even feel about being asked that question?
Yeah, I think it's a derogatory question in itself.
It's not right, is it?
No, just to ask somebody, would you be man enough, is like questioning their manliness or manhood.
There's no need. This is what I'm saying. In any age, there's just no need to say that.
Yeah, and I think we've gone past that now in contemporary times, where people would feel it's okay, kind of to. You can say it when people know you, and I know Baji Farzana, and I know who she is, so I'm sure she didn't mean it in a malicious way.
What's that? Sorry,
Baji Farzana, who actually posed the question. I'm pretty sure she didn't mean it in with any.
We can only go by the apparent, isn't it? Not, when you.
But I think generally speaking, I think asking somebody or a man using the word manhood in anything, it's not always going to sit well. Yeah, if you want to break up in your relationships, then
use them kind of terms.
I've seen it. The woman has said to the man, "Look, what kind of man are you? You can't even give me a kid."
Yeah.
And probably may not have even been in the man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just never know. So,
But this is it, though. I mean,
I wouldn't say something like that.
I don't know if women get the same thing said to them. It's not nice in any sense, you know.
Yeah, I think when it going back to the self-care and self-love, because this is that our own health is important. There has to be a balance somewhere. People's thresholds will differ with what they can cope with, and that's something we all need to appreciate. Whether it's a mother in the house who's looking after the kids and doing the cooking and the cleaning, and I'm just mentioning the traditional things, the traditional roles.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Obviously, the roles can be switched. Or the father doing the same thing. Whoever the individual
side, I think in all walks of life, for example, if there's is me and yourself, yeah, we're traveling or we're in a journey or something or the other should give it away that you're off with me, or there's something simmering, or you're angry, or you're bottling something up. Yeah. Now, the chances are you're not going to say it at the first hurdle or the second. You know, generally we carry ourselves quite well, whether you call that being a good person or anything. We just need to know our own capacities, be it men, be it women, be it children, anyone. You need to know your capacity, and there needs to come a point where you're able to say, you know what, I need a little word, like, this is bothering me a little bit.
Yeah, and if something is becoming bothersome to that degree, it needs to be addressed. Not just when it's to the extent where, the straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah.
But as soon as it starts happening and you feel there's a repetition here, before it gets to that stage where there are ill feelings between people, it should be addressed. But then there is way of addressing these kinds of things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that one of the biggest problems people have is, how do I address the situation? And they leave it simmering for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And by the time they get to that stage where things can't be turned or become very difficult to turn, that's when they start having mental health issues, some kind of breakdowns. Hang on, did I just notice you've got chocolate on your desk?
I think half the viewers noticed a long time before you.
Why did I not notice that before? You've been hiding them behind.
I think Mandy said, I hope you're not going to eat all of those. I don't mind giving Majid one, to be fair,
Just the one.
Communication, I think, is way, way underrated in everything. And I know of all the episodes that we've done, probably at least half of them mention communication. It's got to be better, and one thing that very rarely gets picked up is children. And I don't know how many children listen into our show, or we bored them to death by now, but I would be very surprised, to all the children listening at home, I would be very surprised if you couldn't go home and speak to at least one parent about how you're feeling. Whether they tell you you're right to feel that way, wrong to feel that way, they have to acknowledge, and they will acknowledge, that you are feeling that way. Don't let that build. Don't let that manifest into anger or resentment or anything else. In a good family dynamic, it's quite rare that you'll get shunned if you try and open up. Am I right?
In a good family dynamic.
In a good family dynamic.
I feel sorry for the people who can't do that, though.
Yeah, this is an issue.
This is the melting pot of broken families for the future.
It's not healthy. And to be fair, for those people, they've got to find their avenue, their channel, someone that they can speak to. If it's not a parent, it's not. If it's not a family member, it's not. But even if it's speaking to a professional or someone that you can, but even if you're not, the other, 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 even because the isn't foregone. Even if you're not being understood, and you that thing, not times it get to that. I've seen partnerships, and both sides of this, the other side, and they just don't in a lot of the cases.
Or lack of
Some be thinking the person wants from a and everything else. Oh, if I'm clear, or you should know. Understand? You should have answers anyway. You shouldn't have to ask me.
yeah.
Because this person loves you, they're asking. If they didn't care, you wouldn't be having a conversation.
Yes. Isn't it? When it comes to get into that situation where they've been about, and there's an art to saying no. A lot of people have difficulty in saying no. Someone asks them for something, they can't say no. They don't know how to. If someone asks them for anything, whether it's time, which is, very, very valuable. You can't even put a price on time. People treat other people
And
like...
it's around 80 an hour, isn't it?
Yeah, for your staff.
Apparently.
If you watch retreat employees, put a complaint.
You know what it is?
Call in. Put a comment. So I'll put it on. I'll put it on the main screen. Make a complaint.
You're right.
Yes.
No, you can't put a value on time. This is it.
People are being used for their time. People are being used for their money. People are being used for their kindness. People are being used because they are owed a certain level of respect within a dynamic. Whether that be the family, the elders, using the youngsters, whatever. In these kinds of situations, you have a problem where some people are being I think there's some because you can still hear us. I believe there's an internet connection. Hopefully we can get back to that. Eddie says, I have tried to take my life way back, still suffer depression. I still worry about what others think of me. Weak for trying to talk my life or strong to carry on.
This is true. This
weak for
happens
trying
a
to
lot.
take my life or strong to carry on. And these are kinds of situations which actually happen. These situations, Adi, is I would say you are strong and you're so brave to even open up and openly talk about stuff like that. And no strength is stronger than that when people are actually willing to share such details of their challenges.
There's certain characteristics from which you can judge a person's strength. And Eddie is one of those people that not only does he have strength, but he has strength to offer to others. If you follow
Eddie Young,
and watch some of his broadcasts and his lives, they're fantastic.
And you know what you made
out of my sofa. Trust me, that's not easy to do.
Eddie is a magician. People call me magic. Well, he has a real magic.
Yeah, the art of saying no.
The art of saying no. Yes. I think there is a lot to say in how to say no,
And when
who
to
to
say
say
no.
no to, when to say no.
Don't overdo it. Don't just learn how to say no and run with it.
No, exactly. It's not as
Because-
simple as saying no sometimes. Sometimes it requires some real tact and thought behind how to say no and you know, and all the things around it. But the importance is there are times when we have to learn to say no, whether that's people who are close in our relationships, whether it's people within our spheres, environment. There are times you have to be able to say no.
I'm not great at saying no. I don't mean to, like, I shouldn't be making like just all questions random, but
There's a nice motorbike you bought, by the way. I'm just gonna pop over on the weekend. Yeah,
I've actually already offered it.
he's
He has to
offered me
I think you were asking for a bike.
a
weren't
bike. Yeah, because I need to upgrade my bike.
And I
And he
said,
says, "Take my
I've got
motorbike."
a
You
brand new motorbike. Here you go. Do you want the keys? This is the thing. I'll have a very full day, or I see
Yeah.
as a full day, and then someone will ask me to do something.
Golden remedies are, unfortunately, yes, you are right. It's I think there's some works going on with the internet, which is why
I thought perhaps it might be because we're streaming more devices, but we seem to have turned them all off, and it's still lagging, isn't it?
Yeah, we need to reset it. We probably forgot to do it at the beginning. Anyway, moving on to the conversation. Because, oh, by the way, if you haven't already done so, you can actually listen to our podcast on Spotify and Apple.
iTunes, Google
yeah.
Podcasts.
So if you
everywhere.
listen on there, do subscribe on there, and our YouTube channel. So for those of you who are listening back, Eddie says, "Thank you and appreciate the support you give. You are true friends and love the support you give." Always, Eddie. Eddie's, you help everybody around you, and likewise, I'm sure people would say the same things about you. So yeah, the first thing I was talking about was the art of saying no. There is an important reason why we need to say no, and because if we don't we don't learn how to say no at the right time, we can voluntarily take on overwhelm, and those overwhelming, which become responsibilities. We can take on inadvertently responsibilities we never even asked for.
Yes.
And they could be legal responsibilities at
or
times.
responsibilities
High
that we
pressure.
can particularly carry. I don't want to skim over this particular segment too quickly. I do want to address one thing though, and I think is important, is most of us will know when we should be saying no. So we'll know when it's within our capacity, we can accommodate, or we can't. Yeah, we know what the right thing to do is. The problem is we find it hard to say no. So I guess a little pearl of wisdom would be on perhaps a couple of tips on how to say no. Don't you think?
Yeah, you could be right. My only contention here is when people may already be taking the piss with saying no, and then they just find another reason to say, actually, I'm going to say no again.
Yeah.
And they don't do enough as it is.
Yes.
And they learn,
But that's always the case, isn't it? Any sort of weapon or anything in the wrong hands.
There are two things that are important in these kinds of situations. There's the right time. With time, people understand there's a right time to ignore. Learning to ignore certain things. People who have a higher purpose, they're not worried about the smaller things in life. They're willing to ignore it, so it not to affect them. When I talk about me personally, what about me? If it doesn't concern me, why should I even think about the question, what about me? And if it does concern me, then I need to understand and come to a conclusion whether I do get myself involved or not. And that case, I learn either to say yes or to say no. Now, if it's a case of saying no, it's imperative that the no is said at the right time. It's not easy. Saying no isn't easy, especially if you've not done it in the right way.
Yeah.
And even as an NLP practitioner, I mean, I've been in sales for a long time and treating people in NLP skills for selling and negotiating and influencing people. And that's a whole course that I deliver just on those skills.
Okay.
In there is an element of how to say no to certain things. Now, you can be firm, depending on who the person on the opposite side is, will depend on how they will respond to your no's. Now, if a certain type of person is quite strong in their characteristics, then No, you don't want to reset the router now because it'll completely go.
Oh, okay. Is that not an option? Don't reset the router.
So the most firmest of way of saying no is actually using your body language to support your vocal language, your verbal language, by saying, if I'm just saying no, if I put my hand up,
I'll tell
there
you
is a double kind of...
What's very telling is, and people don't sometimes realize this, and sometimes they're too shy, too reserved, too polite, definitely too polite, is that what you'll find is a lot of the time you won't even have to say no. If you can so much as make people aware of your situation, your routine, your responsibilities, whatever you've got going on. You know, we talk about opening up, right?
No, but if someone some people, it doesn't make any difference. They can see everything that you're doing. Yeah. They can see that you're running yourself to the ground to make things happen. And I'm not pulling my weight.
I think that's a minority.
I don't think. Look, I don't think.
If I'm a good person,
well, what's a minority? 49 out of 49, 51? You know, there's still a minority.
Do you think it's that high?
I think no. I wouldn't even say it's that high personally. But I think there's more people who do that kind of thing. I think there's always one who gives more and one less. I think in every relationship.
The way to look at it is
when there's an imbalance. When there's an imbalance to the degree where it's actually harming someone's health, well-being, mental health, and their state of mind and their physical state even at times, because they're rushing around doing all the physical work that the other person could have been doing.
Then you have other problems, isn't it? Then you've got to look at the bigger picture. What I think we're going to focus on is, if you're, for example, if you're in a healthy relationship, which I hope most people are. You know, we're blessed in different ways, but if you're in a healthy relationship, and you've got good people around you, and your task load, workload, burden is particularly high for that day, week, month. I was going to break into song there with the friends theme, but if your workload is particularly high and you've got good people around you, and one of your friends says, "Oh mate, could you do me this favor?" If you were so much to, even if you would say, "Look, I've got this, and this on, but I'll try." Yeah, you haven't said no. You said, "Look, I've got this, but you know what? I'll see if I can, or I'll try." Chances are, your friend will say, "And you know what? Don't worry about it. I'll sort it." This is it. It's not just about
but Ali, this is the
cutting
problem.
Them out.
The problem is, the reason, the main reason we're even having this conversation about this is because of those who don't appreciate that, who don't understand that, and they take the flipping mick, and they just want you to continue doing their stuff for that, for them, without a due care or any consideration about how much that's going to affect you, even though they may have time for themselves.
If that's the case, then I think saying no is the least of your worries.
The problem is, sometimes it's not, because if they're in a long-term relationship like marriage and they've got kids and stuff like that, and it's been going on for years, then what? You can't just get up and walk.
Why not?
Good question.
That's a whole different no altogether, isn't it? That's putting your hand up.
No, but this is what I'm saying. That they say prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
You would rather say no at the beginning before it gets to that stage, than when it gets to that stage where you've got so many other things involved in that relationship that it becomes more and more difficult and complicated to make a straight decision in walking away from a relationship.
I think you mentioned...
But what would you do when you're in that situation? What would you say? Actually, no. Let's not give advice, because...
You don't want to know what I'd say. I'm a little bit ruthless. I do tell it how it is, but it's not to everyone's taste.
And the thing is, I don't think we're insured for giving that kind of advice, in all fairness. By the way, guys, this is just us having a conversation. So don't take this as advice and follow it through. Because this is just me and him. You're just listening to
thoughts, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, thoughts. Yeah.
You mentioned your closest five earlier. If you're in a position where you're getting constantly burdened with things that you just don't need, and things that should never be on your plate or you can't do, and the people are just unappreciative of you, then I don't know. There's a way
Zishan
to
is
ride
asking,
that out.
Zishan is asking the question: how do you disconnect your true feelings when saying no? And he's saying, laugh out loud at the end.
Why should you? Why do you want to disconnect at all?
What, your feelings whilst you're saying no?
Well, yeah.
Well, it depends on who you're saying no to and what you're saying no to as well. Because I'm just thinking of different scenarios here. We can't give a blanket. I wouldn't give a blanket answer to that, because if I'm in a professional kind of conversation, and I need to say no, that's just business. No feelings there at all. I'm just switched off.
You know what?
But if it's a personal thing,
I think sometimes we overly focus on the extreme cases, perhaps more than we should. We end up brushing over the majority. Most people have good friends. Most people are in a good relationship. Most people have good parents or good kids or whatever. Yeah, the people closest to you are good people. Now these people do appreciate you and they will understand you if you can from time to time let them know what that is. Don't blow up after 20 years and say, what about me? I did this, I did that, I broke my back, no man.
Exactly. I think for most people the problem lies there. They've left it too long. It's been simmering for a long
Imagine
time.
doing that for 20 years, Maj, and then your kids turn around and say, who asked you to?
Yeah.
Or why did you keep it a secret? You're telling me this now? And I don't want to go to an extreme example, but if you don't like your wife's cooking, it's okay, tactfully, careful, this is not advice,
and this is an extreme
this should come
example.
with is that, you know what, there's a way to do it. Don't eat that food for 20, 30 years and then decide to tell her. That will destroy her. Like, that will kill her. But if you can...
Don't tell her at all, guys. Trust me, that's the better advice.
You know what? Just
don't tell her at the beginning either. Just don't tell her at all.
Say it's lovely, but then talk about
Come on,
things
Ali.
that you prefer.
Listen, from you, this coming from you it's unfathomable. It's not even true. You're not even being true to yourself. You're one of those guys who I know sat at dinner table. You are the biggest critic when it comes to food.
I really am.
Taste,
honestly,
the ingredients.
I am.
I don't know how to hide the put up with you.
Well, the thing is, I've said this to them.
But the thing is,
and I'm generally like that with people, is I will tell you how it is. Don't hate me for it. Like, if you...
And damn right they would.
If you don't want the truth...
No, but why are you volunteering the truth all the time then?
What do you mean?
I think you can be extremes in giving feedback. I think you should have a bit of a heart.
No, I tell you
what Prophet ﷺ said, when it comes to food, if there's something you don't like, better not to say anything.
Yeah.
But if you like something, praise it.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're criticizing it, that's not the prophetic way anyway.
No.
It hurts people's feelings.
I think you're referring to perhaps our foodies groups or our reviews of takeaways in restaurants. That's different. At home,
are you under the thumb?
Ask any of the wives, ask my mom, ask my aunties, ask anybody, has this guy ever refused food or pushed food away and said, I don't eat that, or I don't like that?
That's a really extreme
Never
thing.
The case.
But you have said in so many times that you're the kind of person who could not refrain from making a comment.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, Madge, if you're look, I've surrounded myself with people who appreciate honesty, and that's just not a license to kill.
I think you've interpreted it as that.
But the thing is, nobody will be left wondering what I'm thinking. They just won't be left wondering.
Maybe they don't want to know what you're thinking.
I don't know.
Don't stop volunteering.
But those people have come and gone as well, that just don't want to hear the truth. And they're gone, and good luck to them, and I wish them the best.
Is that including your wives?
Nah.
Good luck to you.
You're not going anywhere.
Good luck to your sisters. He said it. He wishes you the best. Next time,
home is different. Home is completely
next
different.
Time he's so critical. Get the tawa out. That's it.
Eddie says this is the man that shoots from his hips down straight.
I think, Zishan, what have you started with that question? What have you started?
It's a good solid question.
So your wives could ask the same question. You get everything in terms of the way you want to eat it and whatever, and they might want to please you, and in cooking the way they feel that you want it. But at the end of it, they could be thinking, what about me?
It's somewhat different.
What about me?
You know what? At home,
I've cooked for him. I've made sure that it's the right way and all that, and then he still picks out
this
a
is
negative.
So far out of context. He's making it out to be something it's not. At home, I don't decide what we eat, what we have. No. I get asked all the time, but I say no. Just make anything. I'll eat anything. I eat anything.
Yeah, but you're the. In fact, I can imagine you being the kind of person, make anything. Okay, you made that. Okay.
Nah, that's the wife. You know when the wife, when the wife says to you,
and then when you eat it, it's like salt was a bit hot.
Nah, never that.
Not enough chilies in it. Or you might not even say it. Pass me the salt. Pass me some extra chilies.
I don't do that.
You don't even have to say it. Is that your tactful way of getting your points across, eh?
Yeah. No, our home is completely different. I think food is food and jokes is jokes, but it's very important to understand each other.
Of course.
I think we overlook the role that women play from home. Some go to work and some do everything else, and I get that. And they find it a little bit easier to express themselves. I'm speaking predominantly for the homemakers or the housewives, or the women that, for some reason or the other, perhaps it's cultural, feel that they've got less rights to a voice or a day off or to express what they want and need and everything else. That has to change. And if your partner or your spouse isn't telling you what they want, what they need, then you got to be asking them. It's just a conversation that has to be had periodically, and it's very, very important, and it will serve you well, trust me. Even though you're looking out for the other person, that person's got you back, and that's how it works. Is you give off the energies that you want to be surrounded in and the ones that you want bouncing back to you. My comments don't seem to be coming through. Is that another internet issue?
Which comments?
I can't see Zishan's or anything else, but that's cool. Opening up can of worms. Yes, that's how we do. We keep it controversial like that.
Yeah. Zishan said, I was talking about when you can't say no to certain people if you're thinking, when did you help me or do something for me? Yeah, it becomes a bit of an exchange of help, doesn't it? And some people are the kinds of people who just like to take, and when it comes to giving, they're very, very reluctant, and that's when, Zishan, we need to create a balance in what we give and take. If you feel it's the relationship is there's an imbalance in what's being given and taken, an obvious one, then you do what you feel is necessary. There's no need to put feelings in there.
Yeah, of course.
You take the feelings out.
Yeah.
Actually, if you've got that proximity in that relationship where you can have a conversation with them and say, look, man, come on. So many times I've been asked to do X, Y, and Z, and I do it. But I don't see, it being reciprocated. How do you propose we balance this out?
Wow. You could ask stuff like this. Huh? Okay.
You could ask the question. And if they don't come up with a plausible answer, then they don't need to be told anything otherwise. You could just start doing things your way without making it. You don't have to say anything. You can just decline any requests. And that's it. The problem most people have is when they decline something that they've been requested for because they feel that they should do that because they've not been treated equally or fairly, they give a justification for their declining. So imagine you and I were exchanging certain things and I felt that I was doing more than you, and then you asked me something in the future and I said,
subtle, I like it.
And no. Well, if
okay.
A guilty conscience there.
Sounds too familiar.
And if I said and you asked me to do something, I would just if I just declined, I would just say, sorry man, can't do it. That's it. I wouldn't go into I won't do it because this, I won't do it because you did this, or you've not given this back in return, or we've tried this, and I wouldn't give all the whole host of reasons why I feel that I'm not why I feel that I should decline.
Yeah.
I would just decline, and that's it. And it's a more subtle way of doing it. Say, sorry man, can't do it this time.
Loving yourself.
Yeah.
How important is it to love yourself in order for you to be able to love those around you?
I don't think there's any other choice, because look, we spend more time in our lives with ourselves than with anyone else.
Almost all of our time, with ourselves.
Well,
I would hope so, unless you kind of...
I'm not saying there's any time we don't spend with ourselves, unless when
there might be some out-of-body experiences.
Unless we're asleep and we're not conscious. But
very true, very true.
But when we...
Do you think there's a certain element of guilt attached sometimes to loving yourself?
Yeah, I think people feel sometimes that it's not. There's a difference between self-care, self-love, and loving yourself. There's a difference between self-love and loving yourself.
Mm-hmm. Self-love just sounds wrong. I don't know. Is that
I think
one of those
I think loving yourself sounds worse.
wow.
It's all semantics, huh? But I think
You have to. The point is, you have to. If you don't love the person that you are, what does that say about what you're giving out to the people around you? You know, make yourself who you want to be, and then radiate that to the people around you. So it all starts with yourself. You've got to be content in yourself, happy in yourself. You've got to love yourself. There's just no other way.
yes.
It's important. If you don't love yourself, one way or another, that resentment will, come out, and it'll manifest into the way that you.
Surgical operations and stuff.
Well,
That's another episode of ours. If you haven't watched it, you can go back and watch that one.
Very important element, I think.
Look, I think when it comes to self-love and loving yourself, there needs to be a balance as well, because people sometimes love themselves a bit too much, and in the course of loving themselves, they'll trample over other people. Yeah, and the arrogance shows. There's a difference between loving yourself from an inner perspective and from an outer perspective. In the outer perspective, you get people sometimes who love themselves so much that they feel that they have what's the opposite? Inferiority. Superiority complex.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Narcissistic tendencies. Is this an issue?
Yeah,
Really
and
is.
the problem there is, my question to anybody who does have those kinds of tendencies, who feel they're better than someone else because they feel they look better or certain physical attributes are better, is what did you do to become that way?
This is it. Yeah, that's a good question. Good, solid question. But narcissists are not that by chance. They have got some kind of warped calculator, and they've done some maths, and they've added stuff up, and they've put some kind of distorted logic in, and they've derived that conclusion that they're better. And it's a shame. It's a shame. They're usually the people that can't hear it.
Yeah, and they don't appreciate a nice Kinder Bueno whilst having a good chat.
I
either.
appreciate a whole bunch of nice Kinder Buenos.
Shireen says self-preservation is key. If you look after yourself first, then you're able to give more to work, projects, relationships, etc.
Absolutely.
100%.
It's
That's
too
basically
cliche, but it does come back to the example of the aeroplane in turbulence or whatever, and the masks come down, and you're traveling with, like a vulnerable person or a child.
The first
or
thing
whatever.
they say is, in the emergency situation, first put your own mask on and then put it on other people.
And that can be applied to pretty much all
you
aspects
can't be of
life.
help to other people if you can't help yourself.
Or if you're dead, yeah.
If you're dead,
If you can't breathe and you collapse, then what good are you to others?
Actually, from an Islamic perspective, the scholars say it's haram to be self-sacrificial.
Yeah, beyond a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But
you
self-harm, isn't it?
You see people,
Everybody sacrifices things. You
self-harm.
sacrifice your time, you sacrifice your, whatever else. That's great. But when it goes to self-harm, not good. Not good for anyone. Not even good for the people that you're doing it for. Because it's only a matter of time. It's like a ticking time bomb.
Exactly.
You don't need that.
Exactly. And on that note, we've reached the end of our episode today. Thank you for everybody who joined in. Like I said, please make sure that you do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're on the podcast for audio on the Google Podcast, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. Whichever platform you're on, you should find us there. Do leave us some feedback if you have watched it up till now, which was quite brave of you. Thank you for tuning in, and love you guys. Inshallah, we'll catch up with you on the next one.
Inshallah.
Thanks again.